All right, we ready, Dave?
Yeah, first on the agenda, Donnie, and I think I saw someone here was our guests from the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, Bridget Cantwell. There she is. That's who we were, and Lauren were exchanging emails with. So we've got them first on our agenda today to talk about this partnership opportunity that they have for us to consider. And we have them first so they can then give us their wisdom and then go on about their business. So
Yes, sir.
so Bridget, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We are having some technical difficulty, unfortunately, trying to navigate onto the Zoom link. So I will be joined by our technical partner, which is Jill Pers as well. So if you bear with me just for a moment while I try and sort out some last minute. Let me see.
Would you prefer that we go on to maybe one of our agenda items while you're working on your technical things, and then we can come back to you? What would you prefer?
Yes, please. That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Hey Dave, real quick. Did you send the agenda around? I can't remember. I know you did. It go to
I did.
Stacy, is it up? Did you put it up on the, I didn't see it up on the web. Did you get it?
Let me look real quick from Dave. Hold on.
Okay, cool.
If
I'm
so,
not
then
sure everyone
when did you
has
send
it.
it? When did you send it, Dave?
Friday or Saturday, I think.
Okay, let me look and then I'll throw it up there. Hold on.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. Dave. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Donnie, the next item on the agenda while we're waiting for Bridget and her team are various updates that you may be able to have on 9th Street and 7th Street and the revetment, and then you sent around you wanted us to be aware of a meeting on the 29th of April with the DNR folks at Town Hall. So
That's correct. I got to get a haircut, by the way, too. But no, that the 9th Street pump station, Carol, I talked to her the other day, and Lauren has emailed me some. I was typing up a memo to give to Stacy to hopefully give to council tomorrow night to award the bid. We did do the RFP. We had it in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. And phase 2, the reason I did it that way is I thought phase 2 was going to be a lot of money, expensive. And I'd like to get the flood committee together after today's meeting and talk about that. The phase 1 consisted of replacing the pumps, the piping, and going up over the seawall, kind of the mirror image of what we did at 5th Street, but it didn't address the check valve. And the reason I did that, and I might have told y'all, you might know already, is we're renting a pump right now from Godwin Pumps. We want to get that thing out of the way. The pump station has to happen, I think, either way. I'm kind of, and Gary had some good ideas and kind of brought this up a while back about 7th Street, but 9th Street there, we have a pump station. We can pump all the flow, whatever we need to do. The swing gate check valve, for the most part, works 80% of the time. It stops water from coming back in. It doesn't come up in the grates like it does at 7th Street, but every once in a while, we'll get something caught up in there, hung up, and it does allow water to come back in. So that when that happens, the pumps run excessively, you have a problem, you have whatever. So that's where we were looking at Bayland to install the new WAPRO type check valve there to stop that from happening. But since then, I got a guesstimated install price of around $300,000. So that kind of made me rethink that. And I'm thinking, do we need to install that thing, or do we need to just pour concrete and seal it off? And I'd like for the flood committee members' input and think about this, because that pipe is 95% of the time submerged. So we're really not getting any gravity flow out of that pipe, during times of flooding. The tide has been so high in the last 2 months, as everybody knows, that lives around, or even in the beach knows, we've been getting, I think Bob did it for me, had 18 instances of tidal flooding in the last 3 months. But my theory with that is, and y'all, think about this, is with the tide at 4.0, you got street flooding at 3.6 somewhere there on 9th Street, we're not going to get much water going out through that pipe. So do we spend, luckily the prices that did come in were a little bit more reasonable than what I thought. It was 113,000 was the low bid for that phase 2. But do we spend $113,000 to put something in that may not never open? It would just be closed, or we pour concrete there for maybe, not even a fraction of that cost, $15,000. And do we seal off that completely and pump everything out of the 9th Street pump station outfall? So that's one thing I'd like to think about, but I would like to have the council consider phase 1. We had three bids on that phase 1 project. The low bid was 229,000 with the equipment that was spec'd. I'd like to go ahead and award that contract. The reason being, we're paying 25 to $3 grand a month to rent the diesel backup pump that we have in there now. We also, it needs to be done regardless. I think the pumps need to be put in. There's a 12-week lead time similar to the one lead time that we had with the 5th Street pump station. So to get all this stuff moving and get it working, tides have been, to me, it seems like this year have been higher more often than we had even last year. So I think the pump station is going to be, the contractor that was a little bit has worked for the town over the last 3 or 4 years, probably, 6, 8 times. He's always been, finished his work on time, been good to work with, completed the project without any assistance from us, being able to do it. He's a local contractor. He's a smaller contractor. I don't think he has that much overhead. So I think that's why his price was reasonable. We had another firm, I can't remember exactly where they came down and bid work before. They're in the DC area, Combro, and they were at 259, I believe it was 259. No, 254, 200. And then we had a firm, Stormwater Management's Solutions, and you've seen them. They're the contractors who work for the town also. They came in and did a lot of cleanup work after we had some storms. They did some minor pipe work for me in other places, but they were at $464,240. But having 2 contractors within, pretty close in that $200,000 range makes me feel comfortable with the little bit that they did price it accurately. So that's kind of where I'm at on the 9th Street project. I'd like to get council to award that tomorrow night, and we can do phase 1 and get that rolling if, council sees fit. I'm gonna finish up a memo and give that to Stacy to, provide to the council members and mayor tomorrow morning. Phase 2, like I say, I'm not in as much of a rush. I mean, I think we need to decide on that, but I'd like to have a good discussion because I'm thinking like we did have, as y'all live there and you've seen, for that kind of money, we can maybe wheel in, buy another portable pump. If we have a hurricane, if we have a big flood, if we have a major instance where we need to get water out of there, the tide's going to have to go down anyway. That'd give us time to wheel in a backup pump, do kind of similar to what we do now instead of spending $113,000 on a check valve. And we're really just putting it in there just so it'll stay closed. 7th Street's a whole different story because we don't have a pump station there. That's kind of all I had about 9th.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to be like, flood committee chime in, please, but we can award that. The contractor's price is good for, Stacy can help me out, maybe 90 days. So I think we need to make a decision. Everybody can email their concerns, their thoughts, maybe to Dave. We can talk about it. We don't have to wait a month to discuss it. But due to the agenda today, we can discuss it in the next couple of weeks and hopefully make a decision on that or get some input on that maybe.
Hey, I think that's a good idea, Donnie. I know that phase 1 is on the town council agenda and you're going to present that. And I think that's a good approach. For the phase 2, you talked a little bit about it. I know Gary has some ideas. Maybe if you could just start off, and we can do it by email. I don't think we should wait a month, but maybe you could just at some point in the next couple of days, start off like an email conversation with the flood committee. These are the pros, these are the cons.
Right.
And just start off a conversation like that.
Yep.
And then we can kind of all go back and forth and see if we can reach consensus. Does that sound good to folks? And Stacy, is it a 60-day?
Yep.
Is that price good, 60 or 90?
Let me go back and look, but I believe it's 90. It should be 90.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
pretty sure it's 90. I think I just read, but I'm not.
Are you referencing the phase 2 price or
Yeah,
the phase?
yeah, phase 2.
I believe it's 90, but let me look real quick. I'll let you know.
Okay. And Carolee, why don't you, does that sound good to you? You've worked a lot on the RFP. Yeah.
Donnie, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way you could temporarily seal it and just see how it goes before we make that decision to seal it?
Not that I know of, other than putting like a blow up plug in there. I mean, it's pretty much sealed now. I had called a diver, but then unfortunately all of them were in Baltimore working because we had a couple cases where it was higher than normal, and I think something was caught up in the check valve at ninth, letting water back in. And before, we've had to call a diver in, get a diver down in there and pull out a stick about the size. It only has to be a 1/2 inch in diameter really to get that thing to get stuck open. 2 or 3 times since I've worked here, I guess I started in 07. We've had a diver get in there twice and had to clean it out to get it to seal. I talked to the contractor, the big Crandall, not Eddie Crandall, but the Crandall out of Galesville. And he said while they were installing it, even they had a couple of issues with the pump station and they had to get a diver in there to clean it out. But 90%, if you pump that wet well, if you pump it all the way down, you can tell because you don't have water rushing in from the day. And you can see the level in there. And 80–90% of the time it's shut. But it's a problem when it does get caught open because you can't access it to maintain it. We can't push it open. You can't physically get in there without having diving gear on to do anything to it. So it's a problem. The only way we did seal off 7th Street temporarily with the plug when we cleaned out all the debris out of the stormwater pipes. So you could put a blow up plug in there. You'd have to keep checking the air. That thing would go down. But yeah, we need to think about what's that's the main consequence. Like what would be the consequence if we seal it off permanently? What are your consequences and what are they worth? Pros and cons on that.
Okay.
Lauren, they are good for 90 days.
Okay. All
Says
right.
the town will accept or reject bids within 90 days.
Okay, cool. So then, and we can accept phase 1 and hold on phase 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's just keep the conversation going on that, Donnie, and get you an answer. We can kind of all reach, hopefully reach consensus in a couple of weeks so we can move forward on
Yeah,
that.
I can send something out, to start,
Okay.
Donnie, that you can reply to, and then we
Yeah,
can.
if you want to, you can send it out as quick as tomorrow, whenever, and get started. And then to give us, I measured the WAPRO check valve, and it's like 5 feet long. I think our rep was saying he was going to try to make it shorter. Charlie was actually at the pre-bid meeting, but it measured from the square concrete box until the seawall. We only have like 3 feet, 3.5 feet there. So we don't even have. It's going to be a challenge to get it in. I actually called the low bidder to see if he could meet me tomorrow to relook at it to make sure he thought it was possible to do it on site with the owner of the company.
Yeah.
Now
So
Donnie, is that the
I
guy?
will let you know what we find out on that end too.
Is that the
7th
guy we
Street.
met?
I'm sorry.
Donnie, is that the guy we met?
Yeah, Charlie that was out there on the pre-bid meeting.
Okay, did he actually determine that if the street was flooded, how much water would have to be in the street before that valve would even work?
He
was
got with
gonna-
Bayland. Bayland did that part. They did the calculation and they gave him a pressure reading, like how many, how much PSI it would take to open that up, and the water level. Bayland actually calculated that. Those two were working together. And they said it would open, but the street would have to be flooded. So at that point, if it opens, to me, is it still recirculating from the tidal, or are we getting any benefit from it? If you follow me.
Did he say how much water would have to be in the street?
I don't remember off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Hey, Donnie, before you go launch into 7th Street, let's check in with Bridget again and see if she
Okay.
and her team are ready to go. And if so, they can carry on.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that, David. I think that everybody from my team is on. So just a little background. My name is Bridget Canwell. I'm with MDEM Hazard Mitigation. We've been working with a partnership that starts all the way up through Department of Homeland Security to kind of get this tool together. The tool is being developed by a partner called the Deltaris out of the Netherlands. And they have this software called Flood Adapt that will hopefully eventually be able to answer some of those questions that you guys were just working through. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and introduce Catherine Roscoe, who will present a little bit further on the Flood Adapt tool that we're working to develop. The initial or the end goal is to hopefully have a partnership to facilitate the development of this tool. It's not, I guess, finally ready. It's not I guess, commercially ready. But we really want to find a community that has done extensive flood planning already, which your community has, and can hopefully provide meaningful feedback and make this tool better suited for answering some of these questions. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and pass it over to Catherine.
Thanks, Bridget. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Yep.
Well, thanks for the invite. Interesting conversation you were just having. So I was thinking about it while you were talking, and think I'll maybe show a little something that I was playing with while you were talking at the end of my little presentation. So my name is Catherine Roscoe. I work at Deltaris in the Netherlands. There's also Deltaris USA in the US. We're a not-for-profit, kind of like a national lab in the Netherlands, basically an applied research institute. And we started this partnership a few years ago in 2020 with Department of Homeland Security to try to bring some of the open source tools that are developed at Deltaris. So Deltaris does a lot of different things. We're about 1,000 people. And one of the things we do is develop like flooding related software, and our software is open source. And you know, some of our tools are really rapid, and Department of Homeland Security was interested in bringing those together and trying to make them accessible for planners. So that's what I'll present to you about, and then, you know, tell a little bit about what it is. And then afterwards, we can talk about what we're doing with MDEM and how you as a community could be really important for sort of demonstrating the utility of Flood Adapt is the name of the tool. So let me see if I don't have screen sharing rights. Is that something that we can add on the fly? I didn't need to check
Yes,
that.
let me, I can do it. I have to remember how to do it though.
Mm-hmm.
There we go,
Every
try it
software
now.
is different. Okay, let me try that. Yeah, that
Catherine,
worked.
for your information, we've got you on for about 20 minutes on our
Oh, then I'll
agenda
hurry up.
today.
Yep, thanks.
So, because we do have other items, but
Yeah.
we do want to hear from you, but I
Yeah.
want to gauge your presentation by that.
I appreciate that a lot. Bridget did tell me that, but the reminder was needed. Thanks. So can you all see my screen? The white screen that says planning for the future.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll kind of buzz through these quickly, but basically the context of Flood Adapt is kind of what you're all talking about, like the need to make decisions and plan without knowing exactly what things are going to look like in the future, and that there's a lot of things changing, sea level rise, people moving into the area, more frequent storms, and all of this is affecting the flooding in your area and your flood risk. And there's all these actions you can take. You were just talking about some of them. And, you know, the question is, how do all of these changing conditions affect your flooding, but also all the actions you can take? How is that going to reduce the flooding as you move into the future? And basically, to answer all these questions, you need to do modeling. And modeling is, you know, traditionally a bottleneck here. And so the idea of this partnership was to make that component easier and give it in the hands of people like you all to like be able to play around and understand your community better in terms of flooding. So I'll just quickly run through the concept of Flood Adapt at a high level. The idea is you got a bunch of questions. You were just talking about a pump. You know, what if we do this measure? What if we put it here? What if we put it there? How long is it going to be effective? You know, and then all kinds of different questions you might ask in terms of planning. And the idea is you put that into Flood Adapt user interface, and that's what we can train people to do in a couple of sessions. And then what happens is that you basically break these questions that you have into sort of like ingredients of what we call a scenario. So something about the future, a projection, a type of event like one of these high tides, or it can be a compound flood event, and some action you can take. And what happens is that behind the scenes, it's doing all kinds of stuff that an expert modeler would normally do. So it's connected to a very rapid physics-based compound flood model and a building and road level impact model. And when you make your choices behind the scenes, it's going into these models and it's changing them to represent what you specified. And then it runs them. So there's nothing really pre-cooked about this. So it runs the scenario and then it gives you output that helps you understand what's happening, helps you make decisions. That's the idea of FloodAdapt. And just a couple of slides about why we feel it's unique, because it's quite a populated landscape of tools. And some of the things that are special is that you can run events that are familiar to you and your community. So I have a bunch of examples from Charleston in this presentation, but afterwards I'll save a few minutes to show you the system for Calvert County, where North Beach is also represented. So these are just some examples from Charleston. They had a hurricane that almost made landfall, but it shifted at like the last minute and spared them. They also had, and so did you all, I believe, the nor'easter in December last year, coupled with heavy rainfall. These are things fresh in the memory, the community knows them. So running scenarios with those, like, hey, what if we'd had this measure in place? Or hey, what if that happened again with sea level rise? It resonates with the people who live there. So that's special, we think, about FloodAdapt, that it lets you do that. And that these events can also be compound, because y'all are coastal with, rainfall. The combination is sometimes causing much worse flooding than either rainfall or surge alone. So this is just a little example here from Charleston with that nor'easter, if this video works. This is the flooding of the nor'easter without rainfall. And when we include the rainfall, you see there's a lot more flooding, a lot more flooded roads. So it's just kind of a story about why it's important to look at both rainfall and the tidal flooding. And this is just an example from that same event. They took our flood map and they overlaid their towed vehicles. And you can see that a lot of the vehicles that were towed were actually in the area that was flooded because this was a compound flood event. So another thing that makes FloodAdapt unique is that you really have the ability to play with it yourself like a modeler. So I have a couple videos here. On the left, I'm gonna elevate some homes. On the right, I'm putting a flood wall around the peninsula. We did something similar when we were playing around in North Beach, where we put a wall or elevated a wall around some of your waterfront properties. But it's as easy as just clicking around, so that you don't have to worry about all the input files of the underlying models. That all happens automatically. And once you do this, then you're kind of ready to run your scenario. So these are the models underneath. I won't go into much detail about those right now. It also, the tool takes into account income inequality. So basically, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because we don't have a lot of time, but it has features in it that allow you to make use of income data from census, and it does equity weighting based on income at a census block level. And this basically allows you to look at, for example, this is a map of expected annual damages, and there's something you can click for equity weighted, and you see the picture change quite dramatically, or at least noticeably. And basically, it's kind of an equalizer. Very wealthy areas get a lower equity weight, and poorer areas get a higher one. So it's kind of reflecting how the damages are perceived by the people who experience them. Another thing is we overlay social vulnerability data. So you get a lot of insights when you run a scenario. This kind of gives you a little bit of a glimpse of some of the output. It shows you all kinds of impacts, but also how those impacts are distributed over different sort of socioeconomic or social vulnerability classes. So I have a little demonstration here. I'll just go through it quickly because I want to have time for questions. So this is again for Charleston. So that's why I want to breeze through it. But it's about that case where Ian may have made landfall in a different location. So this is just giving you a little bit of a feel of the user interface. I'm selecting a hurricane here from a selection menu, and it loads and it tells me all this information about the storm. So we played with some of these when we were with Bridget and her team, looking at Irene, for example, and we shifted Irene to see what would have happened. So I have some of those scenarios in my system that I can show you in a minute. And it basically, here's where it lets you shift. You can put in, minus shifts it to the left. And it basically lets you do, play around with what if scenarios with the hurricane tracks. So I think I'll just kind of skip ahead here and just show what we did there is we ran with and without that shift. And what you're seeing is the flooding with the shifted hurricane on the right. And this was really this was really a last minute switch. So for them, this is very impactful. I know this isn't your community, but this was the presentation I had ready to go. So yeah, especially with damages, you can see how big sometimes these small changes in an event can be for the people who live there. So as you zoom in, you can really see building level details to really understand what's happening. This again is the output that you get. So you can really see not just the flooding and damages, but also some summary metrics, like how many homes were flooded, how many businesses, et cetera, and to what degree they were impacted. And you can do this with and without a measure. So you get a sense of how effective your measure is going to be. And there's also these metrics down here. I zoom them in. You can look at all kinds of things about your scenario. How many homes were flooded, how many socially vulnerable homes, how many fire stations, etc. This is all configurable. So you can decide what you want to look at every time you run a scenario. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead. It also calculates benefits. I won't go into detail here, but when you implement measures, it'll show you kind of spatially how the benefits are distributed. It also allows you to do this with the equity weighting to see, kind of enables you to do equitable benefit cost analysis. And that's basically, I think, what I want to show for now. I'll tell you the other things it does. It calculates all these different future conditions. It can be a lot of different types of events, hurricanes, rainfall, tide, etc. And the measures that we have are flood walls or levees. We have pumps, urban green infrastructure, floodproofing, buyouts, and home elevations. Those are all things you can play with right in the tool. This one's new. All right, I think I will stop there and just quickly open Flood It Up because I thought it was interesting while y'all were talking. You mentioned that if I have this right, 18 tidal floodings in the last 3 months. Sort of, I decided to look in Flood It Out and see where some of those high tides were, and I found one from March 10th. So I just ran that. And what I did was I ran that scenario from March 10th, so I can kind of show you that. I grabbed the water levels. They're automatically downloaded from NOAA when I put in the dates. And then I just basically made that event, and then I ran that event, but I also ran it with some sea level rise for 2030. Just looking ahead a little bit using some of the NOAA curves, which are also, I just went here and that's the wrong one. Oh yeah, 2030. So it's about 0.3 feet. And then, so I ran those both just while y'all were talking. And what I see is on the left side of the slider, I'm seeing the flooding from that recent event as it was. So this may not be perfectly, we haven't validated this, but you can tell me if this looks reasonable. But I looked at some of those streets you were talking about, 5th Street, 7th Street, 9th Street. And then you can also see some of the building damages and also the road flooding. So if you hover, you can kind of see the depth on the roads. And then when you do the slider, you can see in 2030, then this road starts to get a little bit of water, not much, but this gets deeper. So now it's at 1.3 feet, and more buildings are impacted. So this is actually a large model if I zoom out. So we did the whole Calvert County for training purposes. So you can kind of, when you zoom out, see there's hot spots in a few areas, and then you can zoom in and see what's happening in those areas. But your area is definitely a hot spot that we noticed when we were doing the training. Anyway, I'll stop talking now and just kind of open it for discussion for whatever time is left, and see if you have some questions. And also give Bridget a chance to kind of guide the conversation as well.
Catherine, half your audience today lives in the orange houses, so I am curious to their responses.
Now, one thing I have to say is there's, we use data from the Army Corps about these houses, including their elevation off the ground. If those aren't correct, which we have not validated these, then, that may look like there's a lot more damage than actually happened. Keep that in mind.
You're pretty, looks pretty close.
Yeah, I agree.
For
It
the
does
last
look-
couple of months anyway, but we also, I don't know if you knew, North Beach had a compound flood plan done by Bayland Consultants, and they do have a lot of, but this tool is crazy. I'm sitting there looking at it thinking it's nice to have, but we just need to have you to come up to run it because we don't.
You
to put
can
the
run it.
information
That's the
in,
cool thing.
or my volunteers there, whatever I gotta get them. They do a great job, but
Yeah.
like
The
staff,
idea is we could train you to run it like in a, I mean, we, might take a day or two of training, but you could do it.
right
I heard you
now-
talking before.
Yeah.
You could definitely do it.
I think right now we got to fine tune because we also went to DNR meeting that the county was there also, and the MyCoast app was promoted there. So we've been taking pictures posted to MyCoast, and what we like
That's
about
fantastic.
the MyCoast app is it tracks, it gives you the actual tide, date, and everything when you put the picture on there. So we've got like 3 different things. We need to put them all into one place. Would be nice.
That would be phenomenal for validation. I wanted to show
Right.
you one more thing since there's people living in these houses. So we ran a bunch of scenarios when we were doing the training with Bridget's team. And one of them we put, if you look at our strategy, we put the wall looks kind of funny because we had to tie it into high ground. If I show you this topography, we just pulled it into high ground because otherwise the water just comes around it. So, turn that back off, but basically you can see, we were playing around with that idea. We didn't do any pumps, but if I show
What is that? That's a seawall? That's a wall?
yeah, that's
Is
a
that what you said?
wall. Yeah, I have to check what elevation we put it at, but I think if I look at, we have like Hurricane Irene shifted. Let me do this by event, so they're together. And then no measures, and then with oh wait, sorry. I want this on one side and then do let's see, current Irene 150. We have so many with the strategy. And then you can kind of play around and see if the wall would hold up in that case. Turn on the flood map. So anyway, I thought that might be interesting since these are your houses.
Yeah. So I have a question, just from for practical purposes on a town like us, so I can see that this is a tool we could use if we're evaluating. Do we want to put up a seawall? Do we want to put in a pump? Is there data? What would the sort of day-to-day practical application be like if we have a storm coming so we can warn people? What are some of the other applications besides uses or benefits besides say testing like a seawall or a pump to evaluate?
That's a really great question. So this tool is predominantly intended for planning purposes. So especially for liability purposes, we cannot encourage people to use it for incoming storms, although we do
Right.
notice that people do. But it is good for training exercises. So if you want to look at storms, potential storms, and think about what would we do in this case, or want to create a bad case event for your training, emergency management training, you could use it in that way. But in general, I mean, it is really intended to think about the adaptation options that are possible in your community and looking forward into the future, to think about things like, where do we maybe want to move fire stations in the future, or where do we want to prohibit new development? These kind of questions related to planning and adaptation to flooding is really the main purpose. But if you think of other uses, I mean, we keep expanding the list as our pilot communities find new ways to use it. And just to let you all know as well that we have this demo version available. So Bridget's team already have it, and just that you know that it's a demo version right now. This one, I don't think that prohibits you from much, but in any case, it has full. All it means that it's a demo is that it has it relieves us of any liability essentially. But it doesn't mean it has restricted functionality. It's completely fully functional.
So Carola had spoken up. Others who are on the committee, you feel like a valuable tool that can be put to use? Dave, Jay?
And if
Bob?
I can kind of interject, the ask is kind of like a partnership. We would work together to kind of both use the tool, and then we'll train you guys and then also support you in its use. So don't be daunted by the kind of the technical kind of level of it, because we want to kind of work through how to use this and use your community as kind of like a case use study. So I just wanted to refine the asks, and not that is it useful or not, but would you guys be willing to work with us to kind of both improve the tool and also have that support and explore those questions?
It's a lot for us to take in right away, Bridget. I mean, I think we can all probably see, maybe if we spend a few moments, find the advantages to us for using something like this. But if there's a way we can continue the conversation, with you, because I'm sure we'll come up with different questions and things like that, and other kinds of scenarios that we might see ourselves engaged in. So if there's some way we can keep in touch, that would probably be helpful for us as we mull something like this over.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think for my perspective, the next step would be, maybe a longer meeting where we kind of work through this and you guys come with questions or specific, maybe things identified in planning processes already that we could maybe kind of work through and kind of test and maybe work through. So any sort of continued conversation, that absolutely works for me.
I have just one question. I'm not sure who mentioned that it was not validated or not validated for North Beach. What do you mean by that?
So for example, there may be features that are finer scale than, so this is a really innovative model, flood model that's sitting underneath, and it works at a coarse scale, but it makes a lot of use of information about fine scale, ground elevation information. But it can't resolve, for example, if you already have an elevated road that might be keeping water out. So we've gone through this, Charleston has been a long-term pilot community for us. Mm-hmm. We had areas that were always flooding. I mean, even when they weren't really flooding. And so we, through validation processes, we discovered, things like an old rail line that holds water and an elevated road that kind of connects to their battery wall. Those things are unintentional flood barriers, and they change the flood pattern. So as we did like iterative validation by running events and looking at what happened in reality versus what's happening in the model, we were able to start including some of those missing features in the underlying model to get better and better, more realistic results. So that's what I mean by, we haven't done that for North Beach, but I mean, the model is using good data So that's why it probably looks fairly realistic to you, because also it gets harder when you start adding rainfall to get it right, but the tidal flooding is, it does a pretty good job, even unvalidated. But if there's, an elevated road here or some kind of small barrier, I think I saw there was, that should be added, or we should look into that. That's what I meant.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
We surely appreciate your time. And like I said, I think like Dave said, now that we got a general idea, it'll soak in for a little bit, and we definitely like to reach back out and continue, because our compound flood plan study that we did, I think this would be an excellent backup plan, because they came up with like your seawall, and they were at elevation 11 to protect the front, but they had 3 scenarios and different scenarios for each area, and like so this would be a great check to their plan too, also, you know what I mean? Or but I think we definitely could get a lot of benefit out of it.
Yeah,
What we're seeing in blue and orange looks like what's happening over here, so it looks pretty accurate so far.
Yeah, I think where I was going with it, Bridget, was just as you think about that next meeting, consider what town staff can do versus an advisory volunteer-based committee is the main question. You have very active participants, and that was why I was kind of saying, yep, you got everybody's attention. They know that neighborhood very well. But just separate out what you expect Donnie to do as DPW director versus a lot of the folks who are monitoring things for you.
That's a good point. Donnie, do you have like maybe like a planner or a GIS or
we have a staff of me, Stacy, Joanne's the treasurer, and they have an ad out right now for a town manager, but we do not even have a town engineer at this point. Rick Crump is kind of our code enforcement guy / not really a planner, but we have very limited staff in North Beach. I only have 4, myself and 3 people for the whole public works staff, to give you an example.
Yeah.
I'm small, so we don't have like say we have Stacy, we have 4 girls in town hall, so we're very limited on staff wise.
Yeah, I wonder, I know that like Kara Buckmaster, through the Calvert County Emergency Management is super involved. I don't know if maybe, do you guys have any contacts at the county level that maybe could help support something like this on the more technical realm?
Kara has been great help, and Mike Grierson there has been promoting her, and Tom's been reaching out to them a lot also, and they've included us and given us a lot of help where they can. We're just running around, like today you heard my phone ringing. I'm doing a 4-inch water tap for the water tower, paving a parking lot, and attending this meeting. All the same, not to make it sound whatever, but we're just a small town, so we're jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I think Donnie's doing an accurate description of what a day in the life of, and that's where I was going with it is
right.
The capacity is not, certainly it's not a size of Charleston, that's for sure, but they do not have a planning department. They don't have that kind of level. It is a small municipality, as you know. So just wanted to make sure that was taken into consideration.
Not to cut Tom off at all, and that's the reason, kind of the reason why the flood committee got established. They're residents that are affected, and they've been a great help with us. And we had Bailey and Consultants come in. We got a grant, and they came in and did a compound flood study to look at the whole town, and we never had that in place. So now we're trying to attack, concepts and ideas they came up with. That's why you heard me earlier talking about the 9th Street pump station, and that was one of their models in there, and they did scenarios and best scenario, what would you choose, and 3 different scenarios for each place. They gave us something at 7th Street. They did do the seawall, like I said, and said elevation 6 would stop, to 2050. If you wanted to stop it totally, you'd have to go to elevation 11, different things like that. That was I don't know if any committee member remembers how many pages. That was pretty good detailed study, but this would definitely back that up and go along hand in hand with that. We just would have to have the staff, and like I say, the flood committee is the best, the most active committee that the town has, and they've been a tremendous amount of help to me and the staff as far as getting projects rolling and getting stuff moving. So Lauren is on the council. She's the council liaison for the flood committee, so she's a big help to me also. when it comes to the council level to get stuff through, to actually get the money and try to get stuff moving and keep it moving.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we know that capacity is a huge issue. And part of the reason why we chose the town of North Beach is trying to iron it out, those kind of, how do we meet you guys where you're at? How do we make this useful? And so we do have some capacity at the state level to also kind of set up models for you. So if you guys have a list that you want to look at, we can work with you guys to get those kind of evaluated and hit some of those I guess the risk points or the infrastructure points or whatever kind of impacts that you want to look at, we can get that help set up for you guys as well. So we just want to work it out. We want to refine our process, make sure it's useful, make sure it's applicable. And any continued conversation is really the goal. And that would be success on my end.
I think you can depend on that. I think we'll mull this over as a committee and, get our thoughts together so we can maybe devote another meeting just to this with you and your team. So again, thanks very much for showing up and giving us, what sounds like a very interesting project to us.
Wow, that warms my heart. I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Really
you.
appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
That's
having
very cool.
us. I'll sign off now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I really
Thanks a lot.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
for
it.
listening in. Really nice to
Appreciate
meet you all. Bye.
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon. Okay, Donnie.
All
Whatever
right.
other, yeah, jump in. 7th Street.
Yeah, where I was going with 7th, like we talked a little bit earlier about 9th Street, and it was 113,000. But in the back of my mind, while I'm thinking, spinning, we do have that 9th Street out for an engineering proposal to come back, similar to what we did with Bayland. So I'm waiting for a proposal to come back for, we had a 9th Street concept plan done back in 2002, similar to almost the exact same as 9th, but it never got built because of lack of funds, I think. So I sent that as a working document to an engineering firm to get us an estimate now, upgrade, see anything different, whatever we can change. But within my mind, I was thinking at 7th Street, we got so much tidal flooding, mainly because we don't have any backflow protection at all. So, I need to run this by the council and the mayor and powers to be, but we have it at 113 instead of putting that at 9th Street. If we decided to maybe seal that off, why couldn't we ask the contractor, could he do that same WAPRO valve at 7th Street, as part of that package? Then we would have a backflow preventer at 7th Street to stop all the tidal flooding coming in there until we get the pump station design. And the reason I say that, I think it's going to take a while to acquire or to get the design. It's kind of going to be expensive because one has to be built right in the roadway there and to get a little place to put the control panel. So that would buy us a little bit of time to come up with the pump station design. And that would allow some gravity flow out if we ever had the need. But to seal 7th Street all the way off, you couldn't really do it because if it rains there, then we don't have any pump station or any way to get rid of any of the water that would collect from Mexico, Annapolis, and that little 7th Street area there. So that was just kind of what I've been thinking in
Hey,
the background.
That's kind of a good idea. Do we have, I think we have some funds set aside for 7th. Is that true?
We did. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
400,000, but it was kind of combined with 9th Street, depending on the cost.
Oh,
of
that's right.
Yeah, but 9th Street, if we do plan on award that contract, the control panel price between us here at the meeting came in ridiculously high. So I'm going to see where we can possibly negotiate to get a comparable. We spec'd our panel that we use, but to me, it almost came in as like price gouging. So we can spec another panel that would do the same thing and maybe be able to save some money and put that towards 7th Street also.
Yeah.
So.
Johnny,
We
would,
might be able to get, for the money we have in for 9th and 7th, we might be able to get something done at both pump stations.
Yeah.
is what I'm
No, I
thinking.
think that's a
Mhm.
good idea. Sounds
For
like a
both
Johnny,
areas.
on 7th Street, would the price for the WayPro go down considering that it's a smaller diameter?
It would go down a little bit. I didn't get the exact quote. The contractor hadn't given me like a schedule of values yet. And I can't remember off the top of my head what Charlie said when he came out it would be. But one of them's a 42. The 36 would be a little bit cheaper, I would think. And it might not, we might have more room actually at 7th Street to get it installed because there's no existing conditions in the way there. Not as much anyway.
Okay.
But, you know, we need, because I think, Bob, you've been keeping record for me. You've been doing a great job with that. But, you know, we had 4 times alone in March where we had tidal flooding coming back in 7th Street and running around down Annapolis towards 9th Street, which causes 9th Street pumps to run. So that 7th Street's not only going to help the flooding at 7th, but it's also going to cut down the run time on the 9th Street pumps. So that's why I was kind of thinking if we could get, well, we have prices and a contractor willing to do it. And I don't see his price changing much from putting it in 7th to 9th. It might even be easier for him to put it in 7th. But that's just a thought right now. We'd have
I've got a
to kind of
question.
negotiate that.
Mhm.
Now we know. I didn't know whether Whopper valve to install that would come in at 300,000, 500,000. But when it came in at 113, I was kind of pleasantly shocked that it was that low.
113, does that include the purchase of the valve itself?
Yes, that's everything.
Wow.
Asphalt paving, installing it, backfill. So I thought that was pretty reasonable. Working underwater is my problem. I mean, my concern down there. Because it pretty much has to be bulkheaded off and done underwater with pumps.
Donnie, I've got a question.
Yeah.
You were saying something about the control panel. Is the control panel going to be a new one installed with the new pumps at 9th Street?
Yeah, we're getting a new panel. It's just that the price and the schedule of values, like the cost estimates that came back for that job, to me, that's it was pretty high for all we need is something to run 2 pumps. We don't need nothing that's fancy because the one at 5th Street was $50,000 and we don't need anything that fancy at 9th Street. A whole lot simpler.
Is that included in the 229 that you said?
Yeah, that's a total package for the pumps, panel and everything, phase 1.
Okay. So you're thinking you might get it cheaper if you change those panels? Is that
But
what you're
once we
saying?
award a contract, then we can go to the contractor and negotiate and say, hey, what I asked for is a schedule of values. And what that does, it breaks out what his costs are for each part of phase 1. And we can look at, say, the town really didn't have this much in the budget. Do you see any place you can save money? And he's going to say, well, you spec this control panel, talk to a couple other vendors. We can get a panel for $20,000 cheaper, say. But then he would give us a credit, you know, submit a control panel that we would accept, but it would be a credit for the town, it would be a change order, but it would be a credit change order, not a cost change order.
Okay. Okay. I understand now.
You know, different things like that where you can, like I said, if you only have 150 for the job, but it comes in at 220, then you start looking at what can we cut out to get back down to 150. And that's where you would negotiate, but you kind of got to award the contractor and go to him and get his schedule of values and say, where is it a cost savings here at? And then start looking at that kind of stuff. And see, we spec'd in the RFP, we spec'd a certain control panel. So all the contractors bid for fairness on that control panel. But if we look at it and say, hey, we really don't need that panel now because it came in more than what we thought. You know, we thought it might come in at 30,000, came in at 50. We don't need nothing that fancy to run these pumps. Give me an alternative.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that I had been working with Calvert Soil Conservation, they did some work down in front of the radar towers and they did Breezy Point Beach for getting some more revetment placed from Hatches Corner, which we always call Hatches Corner, up to 7th Street there to protect that from the wave action. And we have a sewer line under there. I think I spoke about that a few times. So we have a gravity sewer line that serves all those houses from Hatches Corner up to 7th Street. And we have electric there and a couple other things. And, you know, we had damage to the railing in that area. So I had Calvert Soil Conservation, I had Bayland, and I have another engineering firm, CPH, out of Miami, and they have an office in Bowie, actually looking at giving a quote on a design and also to include like what it would take to get that through MDE permit ready for that phase. And the one guy who I was working with at Calvert Soil Conservation, they just had a baby, but he promised me he'd be back to work and have me an estimate by the 2nd week of May. So that gives us a little bit of time to And then I'm waiting, CPH, hoping in 2 weeks he'll have his cost estimate. We do have a cost estimate from Bayland Consulting for that. So then we can look at those three and see if we want to move on with that, with council's approval.
Hey, Donnie, remember the Bayland estimate is subject to revision if you know,
Right,
they get that cost cut in half,
yeah.
do a little work on it.
Yeah, they gave an original cost estimate, and I kind of wanted to see where in the ballpark the other ones come in, and then we can kind of negotiate with them the same way
Yeah.
we said about the pump station, so that would be good.
Okay.
Any update you want to give us, Donnie, on the meeting on the 29th with the DNR reps?
The meeting, we went down, Calvert County hosted a meeting, down there, I can't remember, about a month or so ago. And DNR reps came in and they now are back up to staff. I think for a while there, they were missing some people in COVID and this and that and working from home. And the new governor came in and it seemed like to me, the way they were talking at the meeting, they kind of felt out of touch with, communities and the towns and everything. So the governor's push was for them to get back out, see what's going on in the town, see what's going on in the county, see where they could help, see what they could do with shoreline erosion and all, that Tom went down with me to the meeting, Chesapeake Beach, they were there. So we asked if, I asked at the meeting, hey, we have a compound flood plan we did. Bayland is quite extensive. Is there any possibility you coming up to the town of North Beach and meeting with us to see where you could help with our specific projects? And they were really good. They were, I think 2 of the 3 were new. Sasha was there at the meeting, but they were more than willing to meet in North Beach. And I figured that'd be a good time for the flood committee and, us to hit them with, hey, we have this thing happening. We got 7th Street happening. They're, looking to protect the environment, like oyster reefs and different things like that. But they also, we could show them our projects and see where they fit in to try to help us out with grants, design stuff for, the living shoreline. We could revisit maybe Walton's Beach area. Actually, we did this in 2015. It held up somewhat, but it didn't hold up all the way. Is there anything DNR has available grant-wise to help us out to do some of this maybe, or whatever we have? But
Right.
it would give us a chance to meet them face to face and then put a name to a email. And if we need help from DNR, we could contact directly that person or whatever.
Yeah, I would
Are
say,
They're coming
think-
out or they already came out?
They're coming out now. We got it. They, I emailed them. They gave me a date of April 29th. So I wanted to try to give y'all some advance notice at
Can we-
1:30 at Town Hall.
Okay, cool.
April 29th. So whoever could make that, if that's a good date for everybody.
Can we come up with and you just threw out a bunch of different ideas, but can we maybe come out with a written list, like a wish list of?
That's what we need to have
'cause,
ready.
like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, you mentioned Walton's, but also the whole like dike berm thing. I wonder
Yeah.
if there's any changes. I know we can't raise it because the road is a certain height, but there are other, there's maybe other things that we can do to make that more effective. There was that Corps of Engineer
Right.
proposal to put another, outlet underneath the road. I mean, who knows if that's a good idea or not, but it would be good to take a hard look at that berm
Right.
dike and Walton's and see, is there anything else we can do to at least like up armor it a little more and make it a little more effective?
They seemed, what I liked about the meeting, and Tom, they seemed really energetic and really, wanting to meet the town representatives and see what they could do to help. The governor's kind of pushing them out and they're new. Both of them were from out of the area. But I thought they were like, energetic and ready to come on board and try to, make something happen. They were kind of frustrated. Talking to them, they were kind of frustrated sometimes too about the length of time it takes to get an MDE permit, because we were talking about that a little bit. So they kind of saw that too. And I think it'd just be a good chance for us to meet like newer and see how they are. And
Yeah.
because it's always nice to be able to give them a call
I'm
in person and say, hey, yeah, we met you down in North Beach, blah, 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 to get something
yeah, to
done.
pipe in, sorry, my computer's frozen up a couple of times. Hopefully I can be heard, but
Yep.
I think, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Did you say, Donnie, the meeting's 1:30 on the 29th?
1:30 on the 29th at Town Hall, upstairs in Town Hall.
Okay, great. Yeah, and to offer a little context and just sort of strategically thinking for you all, they were pretty much going to every county. So if you don't find a place in their mind to remember you, they're not going to. So it's great that Donnie set that up and that they do want to come out. I think that was one part of it. Another part was that I think there was some concern that a lot of these groups like DNR maybe are working in one silo and another agency is working in another. So they are trying to remove that. So I would very much say, follow exactly what Lauren and Donnie are saying, which is have projects in mind, look like, you're kind of the smarter, harder working kids in the class,
Mhm.
and get in front of them so that their jobs are a little bit easier when it comes time to remember who gets things done and who don't. So
Well, didn't we just do, because I agree, I think we should have something prepared for that
Yep.
meeting, but I think we did like the talking points for Senator Jackson for when he was
Jackson.
meeting with them, right?
Yeah.
Like that has a list, and then maybe we
Yeah.
can build on that. That might not have Walton's Beach, but at least we could maybe start with
build
that
on
and
it.
build on that, so we'll have something prepared.
We also have the Jackson, Jackson said, if you've ever, you're meeting with
Yeah.
DNR, MDE, and you're having any problems, not problems, but you need me to like help
Yeah.
out a little bit, give me a holler, so.
They're,
Yeah, we
I'm
have that
sorry, I didn't mean
list
to
already.
interrupt. But they're also, keep in mind, DNR is more into natural resources, so they're not into the stone hardscapes as much as like living organism, oyster reef, living shoreline type
Yeah,
thing. But
oyster
we
reefs,
can bring up anything with them, you know what I mean?
oyster reefs off like Atlantic and the boardwalk might be kind of something to look into, right? Hatches.
Right. Yeah,
Who
that's
knows?
what I think so.
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
should check it out. We should think about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, any
We can
kind of,
add like the Walton's Beach stuff that you mentioned, we can add to that, or
Mhm.
any of that, yeah.
that's the only reason I brought that up, because it might not be in our flood plan, but
Right.
anything, environmental, like the flushing of the wetlands back there, that's doing pretty good since they put the new road in, but still different things like that.
How about if I send around a note to everyone following this meeting that, you can maybe generate some ideas about what we would include in our wish list for these folks, and then we'll have something. Once we get some input, we'll prepare a document that we'll have for the 29th.
Yeah, that's great. Great idea.
Okay.
Sounds good. I gotta jump to run down. Anybody have anything for me? Because I'm gonna run down and check on the contractors and make sure they block off that parking lot, because we have to put a top coat on that tomorrow before anybody drives on it and falls in the hole. I just gotta make sure they
Don't bring that
don't
up with
leave it
DNR.
open, because I'm sure somebody will love to park on a new blacktop tonight.
Of course.
No,
Well,
I don't think.
That's never happened, right?
Ah, I might try myself now.
I don't have anything. I'm good. Anyone else?
For y'all's information, hopefully we'll be done with all the paving and striping by Thursday, so that should be done, back to normal.
Good.
And the
One
town
day-
council meeting is on Thursday?
Yep.
Thursday night, yep, 7 o'clock.
Okay. Thanks.
7.
Yeah, at some point, maybe we can have a chat about how paving that area is going to help us with our flood mitigation issues, because from my standpoint, I don't know how that helps us, but we can leave that for another time.
Yeah, we looked at it, and then Mr. Russo had a study done, and they say with the gravel that we had there, really it's not paved, but it's considered impervious,
Compacted.
because it's been there so long and it's packed so tight that even though it's not pavement, it's as hard as pavement. So that's the way. But we left a 10-foot border, 7-foot border around there and we also left a green space, and we have an island in the middle. So we do have some capacity to add something there. But just from experience, and it sounds weird, but all that muck you see on the street, actually a lot of that comes from that bluestone dust. So every time it rains, just think about all the water that runs across Mr. Russo's parking lot, and it comes in the street and goes in the storm drain, and then we pay to clean it back out. So pavement might help, not in a, we got to think of a good way, but the runoff that comes across there and the silt that comes back up and down, that's some of that's from that fines that's in the gravel.
Yeah,
But
Dave,
we do have a capacity to put some stormwater around the parking lot there. We have some room.
Yeah. Donnie and I talked about it because I did put in an application or two for you all
Right.
to do something, and I fully recognize, well, whatever, but I mean, we gotta chase the money and fix things. That's what we do. So I'm sure we'll come up with a positive spin on it. But yeah, and like Donnie said, it's most likely the perimeter, not the parking lot itself.
Well, spin is not really what is going to help us, but
No.
I understand. And I'm running on low battery here, so unless
Time to
some
go.
other- we're almost we're past the witching hour anyway, unless anyone has anything else for the good of the order.
No, just real quick, I've been writing about how we can perhaps get our own water gauge to be, so we're not monitored against Annapolis. And yeah, so I don't think I'll be successful, but the next thing is just to reach out to NOAA is responsible for the water gauges. They're operated by NOAA. So anyway, I have a contact person to write to. My question is, if I write to them, am I writing to them as is it okay to say a member of the North Beach Flood Committee? Or am I just a person?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Sure.
great, thank you.
Yes. Would you like, would you like to send it on town letterhead?
No, it's just, it's just an email. I'm
Okay.
fine. Yeah, it's just an email. I think they're gonna say, no, go away. But, let me try. And then if it needs to be, bumped up or something more official.
Alana, just to dive in on that, I'm not sure what it's worth, but actually the county did mention, they emailed, I think, Donnie and myself saying, hey, just a heads up, a resident requested blah, blah, blah.
Really?
Yeah, and you were named.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry and congratulations and all of the above. But I can assure you, both Donnie and I were like, yeah, we know her. She's good people.
We don't know who she is. She
So
she keeps coming to the flood committee meetings.
So
Thank
yeah, no, I think my point is, I think Stacy would be beneficial if you did use their letterhead and just go, hey, on behalf of blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to wordsmith it, but I just want to let you know, it's very
Okay.
possible the person was just reaching out to say hello to both Donnie and I, but it was like, all
All
right,
right.
well, I don't,
Thank you.
Lana can do
Thank
whatever
you.
she wants. Yeah.
All right. All right, thanks,
It's-
Stacy. I'll
it's
keep in
ju-
touch.
It's just like dealing with the railroad. They say no 9 or 10 times. And when you ask the 11th, sometimes they'll say yes.
Okay.
I know at one point when we were up in Annapolis, Donnie and I were up there, I believe, and we were having problems with putting that tide gauge actually in the water where waves would affect it. So it might be nice to maybe go in with Chesapeake Beach and have it put where there's water that's flat. You know what I'm saying? A protected area for the tidal.
It's good.
All right. Yeah.
Anything else? If not,
It's Dawn. Do we want to keep the committee members on to go over the file that I sent, or do we want to do that another time?
I would suggest maybe another time.
Okay.
It's only because I'm getting little notes here that says I had like 7% battery left.
Okay. If you all could try to at least access the file and email me and let me know if you have any issues.
Oh, we'll certainly do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Will do.
And if you
Will
don't
do.
have a Microsoft account, you might get a code to allow you to access the file. So just
Yeah.
let me know.
And we
Thanks,
can call
Dawn,
you.
for thanks, Dawn, for doing that. I went on, I was able to access it, but I guess folks that don't have the North Beach account, we really want them to try, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thanks.
All right,
right.
thanks, Dawn.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Stacy.
Call on the
Thanks, Dawn.
29th.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.